Okay, so moving right along to week 35. We have the last of my three Annie Ernaux, and this is exteriors. And I chose these to present these books in this order because this is the order in which they were written. They're not in any way sequential, however, and they're certainly not related in any way. This is much, much, much later than uh, the earlier ones. And this is, again, it's very different. Again, it's very slight. Um, uh, and what is this about? Well, this is about exactly what it looks like it's about, sounds about. It's about exteriors. Whereas her previous two books I've looked at very much dealt with the internal and very much went inside of the speaker, presumably the author. This one does the opposite and focuses on the external. So what this does is basically take us for how long is it? It's several years. It's from uh, the first bit. It says 1985, and it goes from 85 through uh, 92 in its time. I thought I kind of did it in the right order. Let's see. Um, Published in 1996, English translation. 93. What was the possession? Was the possession the most recent one then? Did I get these out of order? I did. Okay. So this is the most recent of the ones. This is 2002. This is 10 years before that. And what she does here is very different. What she does here is she talks about exactly what the title says, the exterior. You know, on the wall in the covered parking lot at the RER station, someone had written, Insanity. Further along the same wall, I love you, Elsa. And in English, if your children are happy, they are communists. Okay, so it just describes what's written in on the wall. There's a lot of travel in here. She travels by train a lot in these, 85 to 92, these 7 years. And that's because of where she's living, which she goes into in the preface where she's living and what she was doing when she wrote this. For the last 20 years, I've lived in um, Sergi-Pontois, a new town 40 kilometers outside of Paris. Okay. And so she takes the train into Paris a lot in this book. And that's what this is. And so, what's the point here? What is she doing here? Well, she's looking at the external circumstances in which one finds oneself, and she's just looking for that shared humanity. These people are just doing very normal, mundane things. There's no build up. There's no plot. There's no excitement. There's nothing going on that level. It's entirely just an impressionistic kind of, almost like a travel log thing, and just living you know in this environment that is you know um, suburban in a way. It's very mundane. It's very flat. There's nothing flashy going on, and just but this is what life is for a lot of people. There is none of the drama. There is nothing of the excitement. It is just one day after another and the various mundane, unconnected things that one does. And that's the thing. This is very disconnected. We don't get a lot of detail about what her life is about. I mean, we get a little bit because we know she's going in to shop, or we know that she's going to do this, or we know she's going to do that but what she's doing is, rather than dwelling on what she's doing, she's projecting out and looking at what's going on around her. Okay. So, yeah, it's a little bit gimmicky, but that's exactly why I think that her books are so short. Because, take this and put them together. And what have you got? Then you've got, a woman going through jealousy and an internal state that is coloring the way that she sees the world. And then we have the world that she sees, and we have, how everything around her is either reflecting or not reflecting her states. Okay, then we have, a deeply entwined kind of, what is real and what is this perception. Okay, and we have a meditation there on something. Okay, by separating them out, by writing a book here and a book here, and giving each of them these, very monochromatic one look, it's doing something very, very different from that. And I think that's the value here, is she's focusing so much on the exteriors here, what's on the outside, but the outside is telling a lot about what's on the inside too. And I don't mean to imply that these books are talking about the same subject matter, because I don't think that they are. Um, I think that just like with all of her books, I think that she is aware at all times that she is a woman in a patriarchal society. And so I think that there are ways in which what she is seeing and how she describes it do relate to the fact that she is typically a woman, alone walking on these streets, or a woman alone on these subways or on these trains, that sort of thing. It's not like she's accosted or anything like that. I don't think it's anything like that. And certainly nothing dramatic like that in there. Um, she does see a couple of the same people, and that kind of thing. Um, but I don't think there's anything like that in there. But there is a sense in which she's being a voyeur on the lives around her. And for those who don't know, there's a strong tradition in French literature of the voyeur, but not of the sexy pervert type, not that kind, but the kind that just watches life around them. John Dos Passos, an English writer, American writer in the early part of the 20th century, wrote a book, a very long trilogy called USA, that was very much like this in terms of the externals. Is it just tried to document an entire reality by briefly giving you a sense of hundreds, if not thousands, of people. Very, very, very ambitious. I have not read it. I've read parts of it, but I've not read the entire thing. So there's a way in which what Ernaux is doing is harking back to Baudelaire, who I think it's called a flaneur. Flaneur, I think, is the man about town who just wanders around and watches what's going on, watches the exteriors, the voyeur. And this sense in which John Dos Passos, the American writer, is doing this as well. And she's sort of harking back to that kind of thing, but doing it from her own unique point of view. And part of what she's doing here is she's looking at, I think, this late 20th century relationship of the suburb of Paris to the metropole, to the center of culture, to the hub, and that relationship there, but not through her own experiences necessarily, but through what she sees around her, about how the world is changing, and how the world is representing itself. It's like this graffiti on the wall. It's found art to the extent that it's art. It's found. This is not something that she wrote. This is something that she saw and she recorded. Okay, and so there's a sense as well that there's a discipline here of trying to record honestly. Although, I think there are places where her personality and her understanding of the world definitely intrude on the kinds of words she uses. Now, I don't know what this reads like in French, but in a wall in the covered parking lot at the RER station, someone had written insanity. Further along the same wall, I love you, Elsa, in English. If your children are happy, they are communists. There's nothing in there of her personality, right? Today, in the neighborhood known as Les Lanades, a woman went by on a stretcher held by two firemen. Okay, now there, a little bit of her own personality goes in there. A woman went by on a stretcher. Now, why did she not say that two firemen carried a woman? Okay, so there's a way in which there are, if you start really, really focusing on it, and that's part of, I think, what this book is about, is that intrusion of personality in the most mundane things. Is, you know, there's a way in which this is just, such a deeply, deeply, deeply emotional and subjective book, but it's presented as exactly opposite, as flat and objective. And I think that the tension between those two is exactly what this book is about. Now, I have to say that between this one, The Possession, and Do What They Say or Else, um, Do What They Say or Else is the most traditional of the three in terms of a novel. There's a bit of a plot. There's something going on in terms of maybe rising action, falling action, and things of that nature. There is a character. There is a interior and an exterior. There are both. So, if you want to get, kind of, the interior look, the possession. If you want to get the exterior look, obviously exteriors. But if you want to see them together, Do What They Say or Else. Now, bear in mind also that her style has evolved over time. Like any author, she doesn't stand still. So what happened? So the way in which she writes exteriors, the way in which she writes the possession, has changed. She's not writing the same exact way she wrote when she wrote Do What They Say or Else. But I would say this um, quick little, review of Annie Ernaux, I would say definitely worth reading. She has some longer works. None of these are considered her magnus opus. None of these are considered her great work. So I am going to see if I can't get a hold of something else by her, something a little bit longer and more substantial, and see if my thoughts on these slider works holds up against her main work. And yeah, I think definitely somebody worth reading. Quick, easy, but not necessarily slight. Have a good day.